The Legend of Zelda: Rise of the Dark Lord. In the Breath of the Wild sequel trailer, we see a mummified figure that most people would agree is probably Ganondorf due to the Gerudo symbols, red hair, and malice coming out of its body. So a lot of people would agree that that is in fact Ganondorf. And what I want to talk about is what the potential storyline for the sequel to Breath of the Wild could be. What I think happens is Link and Zelda, for whatever reason, go into this cave or this dungeon, whatever that is that they're going into in this trailer. They go into it and they find this mummified figure that does happen to be Ganondorf, and when he awakens, I think he ends up getting possession of the full Triforce in this game, because at the end of Breath of the Wild, we see that Zelda appears to have the full Triforce as her sealing power, because when she seals Calamity Ganon, you see the whole Triforce for like a second, and then Calamity Ganon gets sealed away, and that's that. But at the same time, at the end of the game, Zelda says how her powers have weakened and that she can no longer hear the Master Sword and all that, and that she's okay with that. So maybe now that she is weaker than what she was, when Ganondorf wakes up, he is able to take the entire Triforce. And I think with it, he will restore his whole body to its former glory, with the green skin and everything. And so we will actually see the Dark Lord back as he was from Twilight Princess, because a lot of people believe this is the Ganondorf from Twilight Princess, because he's got the malice coming out of his chest. Same thing with, Twilight Princess. He was stabbed in the chest. So a lot of people think this is probably Twilight Princess Ganondorf. So I think he gets the full Triforce and he restores his body back to its whole form. Then, I don't think that the trailer takes place under the castle. I believe this is somewhere else. Some dungeon, cave, far off from the castle. But what happens is, once Ganondorf awakens, maybe he causes this earthquake and everything as he's rising in power. And we've seen Ganon teleport before, so maybe he teleports to the castle and then begins to levitate. And the only reason I don't think it's under the castle is Zelda and Link were seen with a lot of supplies, and they had an animal with them. So I don't know, I mean, it could be under the castle, but it seems kind of crazy that they would dig a dungeon that deep under the castle that you'd have to have that much supplies. So I don't know, maybe it is under the castle, but I'm kind of going with maybe it's not. Maybe it's in a distant, dungeon of some sort, far, far away from the castle that nobody knew about, and something leads them to it. But that's where I'm thinking it takes place, and then Ganondorf teleports to the castle, and that's when he makes the castle levitate into the air, and that's going to be kind of his base of operation. And because it's floating, we cannot go to him in the beginning of the game like you could in Breath of the Wild. Like, he's an actual boss that you have to work towards to fight. And I think with the power of the Triforce by his side, because I don't think it's going to split apart like it does in Wind Waker. I think it's going to be more like it was in A Link to the Past, where he kept the entire Triforce the whole time. And I think what he does is he's going to make Hyrule dramatically different. And I think that's going to be one of the key things to making this Hyrule feel different than Breath of the Wild, is Ganondorf will have the full Triforce, and he's going to cause so much darkness on a level we've never seen. He's going to probably do things like maybe he corrupts the Gerudo to serve him again alongside the Yiga clan. He's going to have the Yiga clan, and maybe he even corrupts the Gerudo to serve him again. So now he has those two on his side. And then maybe he does some other crazy stuff like burn the Rito's, village down so that they don't have anything. Maybe he does something crazy like freeze Death Mountain, like completely freeze it into ice, similar to Majora's Mask, where the Gorons, their village was surrounded by ice like what Majora did in Majora's Mask. So maybe Ganondorf does something similar to the Hyrule Gorons, and he freezes over the entire Death Mountain. And then the Zoras, maybe he creates like a drought so there's no water for the Zoras or anything like that. So he just lays it down like crazy, and then maybe we get all the old classic, Iron Knuckles might come back, and just all sort of things that aren't Sheikah tech. So no like Guardians are corrupted. This time it's all Ganondorf dark magic like it was back in the day, because this is Ganondorf. This isn't Calamity Ganon using malice or anything. This is the Dark Lord taking over, and he's using his magic to bring things forward, and he causes all sort of corruption, and this is going to be like the darkest we've ever seen Hyrule ever. And so that's what I'm thinking the story will take place, is like Ganondorf, full Triforce, restores his body, and then he just puts all these curses and corruption and everything, and then Link, of course, will have to go to each place, and it will still be open, I would assume, an open world setting. So you could go to whichever, area you wanted to first. So you could go to like Death Mountain first, or you could go over to the Rito's village first, and you could try and solve that stuff first, but you couldn't just go straight on to Ganon in the beginning of the game. It's going to be, he's in the air with the castle, and maybe he like transforms the castle so it's like in his own image or whatever, like in Ocarina of Time, or maybe he does like in Twilight Princess, and he keeps the castle looking pretty much like it did before he took over. It's just a normal castle. I don't know, but if this is the Twilight Princess Ganondorf, maybe he does keep it a normal castle just floating in the air. But that's what I'm thinking is going to be the plot around Ganondorf, if this is him, is that he gets the full Triforce. And this is going to, because they said it's going to be slightly darker than Majora's Mask, so I'm trying to think of ways that it would be darker. Maybe a lot of people that we've come to know turn into Redeads. Maybe Ganondorf like turns the entire Kakariko village into Redeads, which is honestly, I think this cave that Link and Zelda are traveling in, I think it's closer to the Kakariko village, because I could see this being like a modern Shadow Temple type of thing, because that was a lot of theories suggest that was their dungeon and all that, because if you play Ocarina of Time, the Shadow Temple had torture devices in it and jail cells and things like that. So maybe this is where Ganondorf is. It's like the Shadow Temple for Breath of the Wild, because that's where they sealed Bongo Bongo for several years. They sealed him in the Shadow Temple, so maybe they took Ganondorf's corpse and they sealed it in the Shadow Temple. And the Shadow Temple, as we all know, was around Kakariko Village, so maybe that is where he actually is. I just don't think it's the castle, because why would you need an animal and all that supplies? Did you really dig a hole that deep under the castle? It's possible, but I just don't think that's it. But I do think Ganondorf is going to have more power than we've ever seen in a 3D Zelda, because we did see him with the full Triforce in A Link to the Past, but I think this is going to be the first Ganondorf to have like the full Triforce in a 3D game. The last time we saw him with it in a 3D style game was Hyrule Warriors, but that wasn't canon, so I don't know. That's just something I wanted to suggest and make a video on, because I think it is going to be darker due to the fact that the trailer suggests that, and that they've come out and said it will be slightly darker than Majora's Mask. And what better way to make it darker than to have the Dark Lord rise and get the entire Triforce back into his power. That's my thoughts, that's my theory, and I just wanted to talk about it. I want to go ahead and end this video because I don't really have much more to discuss on it. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and I'll see you all on the next one. See ya then.